Keep quiet. Keep quiet.
So today's lesson is going to be on African and Australian culture. So let me just share my screen here. Okay, so you guys can all see the screen, right? It says African and Australian culture. Okay, so well, in the world map, Africa is over here. And then if we closer look, um, there are quite a lot of countries that are in Africa. And then Ghana is actually right up here. And today we're going to be talking about just two main countries in Africa, and those are Tanzania and Egypt. Um, however, as I did not include Ghana in one of my countries that we're going to be talking about today, that is, I didn't really put it in my slides because I want you guys to tell me more about Ghana because um, you guys were born there and I want to know more about your country. So um it wouldn't be me explaining it to you guys, and I hope to learn more actually from you guys. So it would be better if I don't talk about it and possibly you guys can tell me more about Ghana. So
Yes, so as he was saying, he said he wants you guys to talk more or to tell him about Ghana. Yes, so that's why he didn't include Ghana. He's talking about Tanzania and Egypt because he knows you are Ghanaians. You can say more about Ghana. Yeah. So please tell JB something about Ghana.
okay, we can yeah, we can talk about that definitely later on this lecture. But first, welcome to Tanzania. And then in Swahili, which is Tanzania's official language, hello is habari. And then I included multiple pictures here. And most of them you guys could see includes sort of national park. And you guys can also see some sort of mountain on the top right. And then the food at the right bottom. And I'll get to more of these details in just a bit. Okay, so where is Tanzania? So it's located over here. So it's more of a southeast of Africa. And if we take a closer look, looks something like this. And from the picture itself, it's obvious that the coffees are really famous in Tanzania, and a tribe called Maasai is also really famous. And then I'm also going to be talking about the Serengeti National Park and also the Kilimanjaro Mountain. So those are the four main important things that I'm going to be covering for Tanzania. Guys can see the picture here. Then, yeah, let's get into the language. So, like I mentioned before, the official language in Tanzania is Swahili, and it's actually the writing system is the exact same as English. You guys could see at the right bottom. The capital A, the lowercase a, and then capital B, lowercase b, and then so on. It's really quite similar to English, but the pronunciation and other usage of words are quite different. So they have their own language called Swahili. And again, it's comprised of like different combinations of, let's say, letters instead of like the common English letters. So there are multiple words that are quite new in Swahili. After the language, we're going to be talking about the food in Tanzania. It's really fresh and it's great quality. And it has quite a lot of beef and quite a lot of fish near the coast. So near the coast area, where there's like oceans nearby. A lot of um dishes, including fish, are famous, and more in the land, including beef and other vegetables. I'll get into two specific foods that are in that are really famous in Tanzania, and one of them is ugali, and it's made out of corn flours that are mashed and then brought together, and it's usually served with vegetables and some sort of other beef and other additional, say, appetizers. But the main part is that it's made out of corn flours. You can see in the middle here is a man making ugali from the corn flours, and that is the final results of the food. So it's really famous in Tanzania. Now, the other food that I'm going to be talking about is pilau, and it's made out of basmati rice, and it has oil, basil, and beef, and this is what it looks like. And it's also really famous dish in Tanzania. And again, like I said before, a lot of Tanzanian food includes beef or fish, and you guys would see that a lot in the cuisine. Okay, just briefly talking about the religion in Tanzania, around 61.5% are Christians, 35.3% are Islam, and 1.8% does not have a religion, and then 1.4% of the population has their own traditional faith. This is not as important because just on the next slide, we'll get into the tribes, which I believe are the main cultures of Tanzania. Okay, so tribes. There are more than 100 different tribes in Tanzania. So basically, tribes make up the Tanzanian culture. And then tribes are basically a group of people who are living together. So people often group together in large communities and they form different tribes. And there are 120 different tribes in Tanzania. And each tribes have their own different language and culture, which is really, really interesting. The top five tribes in Tanzania are Maasai, Sukuma, Chaga, uh, Makonde, and Ira. So those are the most five, I'll say like top five famous tribe in Tanzania. And then we're specifically going to be focusing on Maasai today.
Be listening. Concentration level.
Yeah. Well, Maasai people, yeah. Can you hear and see everything okay? Or okay, so first talking about the Maasai people, they are currently living in northern Tanzania, and it kind of borders with Kenya, as Maasai people include both peoples from Tanzania and Kenya. And then it's known to be the biggest tribe in Tanzania and Kenya. And the Maasai speak their own language called the Ma language. So again, each tribes have their different languages and cultures. So they speak the Ma language, which is unique to their own tribe. There are pictures of people grouped together, and then I'll be talking about the life of Maasai and how do these people really live? Well, most tribe members are nomadic, which means that they move around and don't have a fixed home that they stay in for a long time. They keep on moving and moving to find a better place to live. So they are nomadic people. And I put a couple pictures here. On the left bottom, you can see that they're herding cattle, and cattle's in the life of Maasai, they provide food, clothing, and shelter. So cattles are very important to the Maasai people. So it's a really important job for them to herd the cattle, and it's often classified as like the person having the most cattle are known to be the most wealthy and the most rich. So that is how they kind of set up the economy system. And then on the middle here, that is their temporary houses. And it's easy to break down and then move since again they're nomadic. They don't stay in a fixed place. And then on the right is people off moving together in a group. So those are just a couple of pictures here of how the Maasai people live currently. And then quickly talking about the clothings. Well, Maasai tribe members have their own unique and beautiful clothings. Well, they have these colorful beaded necklaces. As you can see on the left, there's one around the neck. It doesn't have to be a necklace. They often have it on their wrists too. Um, and then they often carry this spear called Fimbo, and it is used as a weapon to protect themselves as a tribe member. And then you guys could see that they often wear this red shuka cloth, which is their often traditional clothes of Maasai. So those are the clothings that they often wear. And again, it's important to note the colorful beaded necklaces since they design and then they wear it as a member of a tribe. And I believe it's really beautiful by the picture on the left. And then one important thing that I'm going to be talking about of Maasai people are their dances. Well, they have this dance called Adumu, and it's also known as the Maasai jumping dance. It's really energetic and acrobatic, which means that they often participate in high jumping and in high spirited dances, which kind of like brings up the spirits. So they perform this dance during the wedding, during religious rites, and cultural events. So again, it's very energetic. So there are a couple of people jumping, and then I have this video here, which shows these Maasai tribe members performing this dance. So yeah, that was just a really short video of these people, Maasai tribe members performing the dance. And it's also important to note that these tribe members are only a small percentage of people in Tanzania. So it's only about like a few percent of people who are actually in a certain tribe and not every people in Tanzania are in a tribe, some sort of stuff. So you guys could possibly imagine that only like a few percentage again of people are in this tribe and participating in different rituals. Um, well, talking about the beliefs of Maasai, and they believe in one god called Enkai, and they believe Enkai creates cattle and rains for them to live. So there are people praying, and again, cattle are very important for Maasai people. So they often prayed for god Enkai to create the cattle for them, and then rain when it's, let's say, agricultural season, when they're harvesting food, they kind of pray to make it rain. So that is the beliefs of Maasai. Okay, so after talking about the Maasai tribe, I want to move on to, let's say, more of a nature side of Tanzania, because I believe the nature of Tanzania is really beautiful. And like most countries in Africa, they have this beautiful parks or nature that you guys can see. And one of them is in Tanzania is Mount Kilimanjaro. and it's the tallest mountain in Africa, and it's around 5,895 meters tall, which is around like 5.9 kilometers tall, which is really, really tall. And it takes around 5 to 9 days to reach the top. And there are people who actually want to climb this mountain to get to the summit or the top. And but it's important to note that this Mount Kilimanjaro is a sleeping volcano, so it can erupt at any time. It's actually been dormant since quite a long time ago, but people often climb this and often refer to this mountain as the tallest one in Africa. And here is a closer look at Mount Kilimanjaro. On the left is near the summit, near the top of the mountain. And one thing interesting is that on top of the mountain, it's very cold. And despite the common weather in Africa, I would expect Africa to be really hot. But however, near this area, and as you get higher up in altitude, the weather, I mean, the temperature drops down. So on top of the mountain, you guys could see snow. So that is real snow in Africa. Again, because as you get higher, the temperature drops down. So there are often snow on the top of the mountain. And there are people climbing, as you guys can see on the right. There are people trying to climb this mountain. Yeah, that video was Mount Kilimanjaro. And again, it's the tallest mountain in Africa. And there are, of course, a lot of people trying to climb this mountain. And this activity is called hiking. And then people often enjoy hiking since, again, they want to reach the top. And then if they reach the top, there are like a lot of great accomplishments they feel. So they often enjoy hiking. And I actually want to go here myself, but probably some other time. Mount Kilimanjaro, again, is a beautiful place in Africa, especially in Tanzania. And again, it's the tallest mountain in Africa, so it's important to note. Okay, but now talking about the Serengeti National Park. It's also in Tanzania, and it's a massive national park. And it has a lot of beautiful nature, in my opinion. So there is a picture of probably a sunset in this national park. Again, if you think of Africa, you can't forget the national park and this nature. So on the left is person probably taking a tour on a jeep, and on the right there are multiple animals that are near this puddle, and then it's a really big national park where you can take a tour. So I also have a video here which kind of shows and gives you a tour of this national park, and it's really, really beautiful. Well, yeah, that was the Serengeti National Park. And you guys could see from the video that it had beautiful nature. And in my opinion, I really want to visit there personally, but I haven't got a chance to. But again, you guys could see a lot of natural wildlife that are in this park, and it's not maintained by anyone, so it is the nature itself, and it's a really beautiful place. And you guys could also take a tour, like in the video, maybe taking a jeep or taking a hot air balloon, and to explore this really beautiful place in Tanzania and in most of Africa too. And also, you guys, before I continue, you guys watched the Lion King movie around like 3 or 4 weeks ago, and the Lion King movie itself is actually based on um the natural view of Tanzania. So one thing that I wanted to mention that this is kind of like the background that they set for the Lion King movie. So uh, one quite interesting fact. And moving on to the final important thing, and it's the coffee. And Tanzania produces high quality coffees, and it's really fresh. So you guys could see from the coffee beans, they're actually from this plant, and you have to peel it. And then after you peel it, you have to grind it and then add some water or sugar into this to make the coffee that you guys know. You have to boil and then grind everything. And then it's actually originated from this sort of plant. And this plant is really abundant in Tanzania. And this is just the coffee field where they harvest the coffee beans. And Tanzania is again known for its fresh and really delicious coffee. So yeah, that is actually it for Tanzania. So I hope you guys liked the country, and we're going to be moving on to Egypt, which is also in Africa, but more on the north side. So welcome to Egypt, and hello in Arabic is salam alaikum, and I'll talk about their Arabic language in a bit, but it's you guys could see from the picture slide, there are camels on the left with pyramids, as I'll explain later. There are pyramids, sphinx, and there are also really these giant sandstone structures. So I'll talk about each of them as well as the food, and then their capital, Cairo. So let's get into it. Okay, so where is Egypt? Egypt is right here. And then it's again on the northeast of Africa, right over here. And if you take a closer look of Egypt, it looks something like this. And the main important things that we're going to be talking about in Egypt are the Nile River and the pyramids. Okay, so the language. Um, the official language in Egypt is Arabic. So the alphabet, the Arabic alphabet, is on the right bottom here. And it looks really different. So it might look pretty confusing, but they often use this language as a written system. And it again is the official language. So I just wanted to point that out. This is Arabic, and the alphabet and the word itself is right here on the left. This is what it looks like. And then let's move on to the food. Well, food in Egypt is fresh and it's healthy, and it has a lot of vegetables, and it uses a lot of oil in their dishes as well. Okay, one important food, and it's a famous street food in Egypt, and the dishes um are common with like wheat and flour in most of the Egyptian like cuisine. So a lot of wheat and flour are included in Egyptian food. And one main food is called koshari, and it's made out of pasta, rice, chickpeas, and tomato sauce. And here's a picture in the middle. And it's actually the national dish of Egypt. So, again, a famous dish, and it's really tasty, and it's also, again, healthy, but it has a lot of wheat and flour since it's really common in Egypt. So, another interesting food in Egypt, in my opinion, it's called hamam mashi, and it's a grilled squab. So if you guys don't know what a squab is, it is like a juvenile version of a pigeon. So I put a picture on the right. This is a squab. So they catch them and then they grill it. And it's actually the authentic dish of Egypt. Authentic here means that it's really traditional dish in Egypt. So they cook this bird right here on the right, and then it turns out to be this authentic food in Egypt. And people often say it's quite mild, but the taste is intense. So it tastes, I guess, quite different from beef or chicken or pork. I haven't tasted it myself, but it's again a grilled squab. So really interesting dish in Egypt, in my opinion. Okay, the first thing that we're going to be talking about after is the Nile River. And the Nile River is important to note because 95% of Egyptians live near the Nile. And you might be asking, why? Why do they live so close to the Nile River? Well, it is the best source for water and for farming, fishing, and transportation. It was in the past, and it still is today. People often go there for the source of water, and they also go there to fish. And there are a lot of agricultural fields near the river. So it's a really good place to live. Since again, Egypt, it doesn't have a lot of sources of water, and the Nile River is their main source of water. So 95% of Egyptians live near the Nile River. And I put a picture in the middle here. That is the Nile River. And often civilizations are formed near the Nile River. From here, you can see there are houses nearby the Nile River. And then there are often people on boats that are crossing the Nile River. As again, I mentioned, it's the main transportation system. They move in boats on the river. And it's the longest river in the world. At least it's considered to be the longest river in the world. It might actually not be the longest. The Amazon River in length is the longest, but people often consider the Nile River as the longest river in the world and it's 6,600 kilometers long. It's really, really long. So I put a video here, which kind of like shows how the Nile River is and kind of shows you how long it is. A short introductory video of the Nile River, and you guys could see that it flows way far, more of the south of E- Egypt, and then more as it flows into the Sahara Desert. So there are sudden changes to the river around the surroundings. There are deserts, and especially that we're going to be talking about Egypt. Egypt is mostly made of deserts. So the Nile River provides such good source of water, and a lot of agricultures are built nearby the river and then farms, and they also use it as a transportation method. As you guys could see in the video, a lot of people use their boats to cross the Nile River. So it's a great and important place in Egypt. Okay. Now that we talked about the Nile River, I'll briefly mention the pyramids. And the pyramids are structures that are built in ancient Egypt. And it's 138.5 meters tall. And it's all built by hand with limestone and bricks. So it's quite interesting since people in the past built this structure by hand and they had to carry this heavy limestone and bricks to form this pyramid structure right here. This picture. And then inside the pyramid, it looks something like this. But the pyramid itself, it was actually a tomb for pharaohs in the past. So pharaohs were like kings in ancient Egypt. So after the pharaohs died, people buried them in the pyramids. So pyramids served as a tomb for these pharaohs. On the left, it shows like the inner map of the pyramid itself. And on the right, it shows the beautiful artwork inside the pyramid. So people in ancient Egypt decorated the pyramid from inside and also built this triangle structure from the outside. And inside the pyramid, it's also famous for their treasures and gold. So treasures were buried with Pharaoh himself, and there are a lot of gold in this tomb. So people often try to break in to these pyramids try to steal the pharaoh's gold, and that is an often case in Egypt, as people want this gold and try to break into the pyramid to steal it. I have this short video here which kind of shows how the pyramid is and how it looks like on the inside and the outside.
The Great Pyramid of Khufu here at Giza is the culmination of hundreds of years of trial and error in pyramid building. But it's not only the perfect shape, it's the largest ever built, and it's never surpassed.
The Great Pyramid was a fortress designed to protect the pharaoh's tomb. 24 foot off center, the entrance would have been tricky to find. At the top of a 130-foot passage, a pulley system of ropes dropped 3 enormous granite slabs, sealing off the entrance to the burial chamber. Next, 3 giant blocks slid down the shaft, closing off a grand staircase. This pyramid was a masterpiece of engineering. Capped with a layer of flawless white limestone, it was an unmistakable symbol of the pharaoh's supreme authority. The Great Pyramid was one of the first true pyramids ever built, and none of the Pyramid Age kings that followed Khufu would match it. The incredible scale of his tomb suggests Khufu wielded remarkable power, but very little is known about the king himself. Steve has been granted special access to explore the restricted areas inside the pyramid, to hunt for any clues to the life and death of this mysterious pharaoh.
I'm gonna have to stop for a minute, guys. Really is getting dark. Hard to see anything.
Yeah, that was a short video that by National Geographics, and it kind of introduced you guys to the outside of the pyramid. And there are people who go inside and try to kind of explore more about these pyramids, since there are multiple mysteries of pyramids and it's not quite well known yet. So people often try to go in to explore and try to discover some life in the past, possibly. And one more important thing, near the pyramids are Sphinx. And Sphinx basically guarded the secrets of the pyramid, and they believed the structure itself will protect the pyramid. And the head of Sphinx is a human, and it has a body of a lion, but it also has a wings of an eagle. So that is the structure of Sphinx, and it's again made out of limestone. And then this is just a giant structure that is built to protect the secrets of the pyramid. So he's like a guardian right here, sitting in front of the pyramid. Okay. Now, finally, but not the least, I'm going to be talking about Cairo. And Cairo is the capital of Egypt. So most people tend to live in Cairo, since the rest of the places are far away and it's not as well developed as Cairo. So a lot of people gather in Cairo to live in Egypt. So picture in the middle, this is the picture of Cairo. And before I move on, I would like to mention the river in the middle. What do you guys think the river is in the middle? If you guys may know, in Egypt, of course, like I talked about before, that is the Nile River in the middle right there. So the Nile River crosses the capital of Cairo. So it kind of splits the city in half, kind of. And again, like I said before, many of people live near the Nile River, and Cairo is one of the main cities in Egypt. So that's what it looks like. And then I'd like to quickly talk about street markets. The street markets are very famous. They're often crowded and they sell jewelry, glass, accessories, and more. So those are the street markets in Cairo. And a lot of people come to the street market to trade and to buy goods. And again, it's in Cairo. Okay, so that was pretty much it about Egypt. So in Egypt, we talked about, well, first talked about the language, which is Arabic, and we talked about some food, which wheat and flour is common in Egyptian food. And then we talked about the Nile River, and then we talked about the pyramids, the Sphinx, and then finally the Cairo, which is the capital of Egypt. Okay, so now I will actually be moving on to Australia. Well, Australia, the language spoken is English, so hello is just hello in Australia. And then I put a lot of pictures here. And then Australia has beautiful nature, and I'll get into that in just a bit on the next couple of slides. Well, Australia is over here, right here on the world map. It's right here. In Africa, like we just talked about, was just here. But now we moved on to over here. All right. Okay, I'd like to quickly tell you guys that Australia is special. Australia is both a continent and a country. Before, we talked about continents and countries being separate, as countries are in a continent. For example, Ghana and Tanzania, Kenya, and Egypt are all countries of Africa. So Africa is a continent, and there are many different countries in Africa. However, Australia, like I mentioned before, is special. Australia is both one big continent and it's also a one big country. So that is one important thing that I wanted you guys to know. It's both a continent and a country. Well, okay, let's take a closer look at Australia then. So what does it have? All right, it is an island. It's surrounded by ocean and water. And it's famous for a lot of different things like kangaroos and the beautiful nature, the Great Barrier Reef, and the often big mountains and cliffs. And I'll get to that just a bit. Okay. Another thing that's important to know is the history of Australia. So without knowing the history of Australia, you guys would be pretty confused in the next slides. So I would like to quickly clear it up. Okay, so Australia was a British colony at first. So basically, what that means is that British people first lived in Australia. So, but in 1986, Australia gained independence from Britain. So it became its own continent and its own country. But again, as British people lived in Australia for the past around 40 years, as a result, Australia doesn't have much deep culture compared to other countries and other continents. So Australia doesn't have their own languages, they don't have their own food, and they don't have much of their own culture and tradition because it has been a British territory for the past a lot of years. And it's only been 40 years since it gained independence. That's why it doesn't have a lot of culture. Okay, like I mentioned before, English is the main language of Australia. So again, because until recently it was British territory, Australia doesn't have their own language. So English is their main language in Australia. Okay, food. Same with the food. there's no traditional food due to a recent gain of freedom. So, most of Australian food is similar to ones in Britain or United States. So, I think it's the next lesson that I'll get into the North America and the South America, and then possibly Canada as well. So, you guys could see that it will have a really similar food to Britain and the United States. Okay, the food is not that interesting. Well, then what is so famous about Australia? Well, like I mentioned before, nature is really, really famous in Australia. So although it doesn't have any deep culture, the nature is magnificent in Australia. Um, One important nature is Uluru, and it's a really beautiful place. It's actually a massive sandstone, and it is at the center of Australia. So this is a giant, like a peak of sandstone that is emerging from Australia. And it's important to note that it's the center, actually, of Australia. I have this map here, and Uluru is located here. Can you guys all see the little pink star right there? Well, that's approximately the center of Australia. And then that is where the giant sandstone is located in Australia. So it's near the center. It's quite interesting. If you guys wanted to see the picture more, that is a giant sandstone and it's pictured in the sunset. Okay, but moving on to our next part of nature is the Blue Mountains. It's a gorgeous mountain, which it doesn't only consist of mountains, it consists of forests, cliffs, and waterfalls. So it's a beautiful mountain that is in Australia. And this picture is right here. The beautiful cliffs and mountains and trees, forests and waterfalls, and everything. Okay. However, there's this one really famous animal in Australia. It's almost considered to be the icon of Australia since it's very famous. And have you guys ever heard about kangaroos? Well, kangaroos are these animals. I put a couple of pictures here. You might have heard of it before, but never actually saw one before. There are these mammals where they use their feet to jump as a way of transportation. And they have these small pockets in their stomach for their offspring to get in. So it is a small shelter for their children. So they have these pockets again in their stomachs. And I have a video here which shows the kangaroos in Australia. Brief introduction to kangaroos. And you guys could see in the video that they hop instead of walking. So they hop as their main way of moving. And again, they can be really fast. And they hop like this in the picture left. And like I mentioned before, they have these pouches, which kind of protects their offsprings and their children. So until they grow big enough, their mothers nurture their children by putting them in their pouch, which is near the stomach. It's really interesting. And there's actually a kangaroo island in Australia. And there's an island that's full of kangaroos. That's why it's called the Kangaroo Island. Um, Many of the kangaroo population lives in this island. And on the picture on the left, you're just kangaroo family near the ocean, again, because it's an island. And on the right, there are this family just looking at the kangaroos. They're grazing grass. And then Kangaroo Island is over here. So it's quite really, really close to Australia. It's just right across a 50-minute ferry ride. And you'll get to the Kangaroo Island. Okay, another animal that I want to talk about in Australia are koalas. They are native to Australia and they look something like this. You guys could see that it has some sort of gray fur. And then it's actually called, the official name is a koala bear. So it is believed to share a common ancestor with the bears, but it's not proven yet. But you guys can see the cute face and then the gray fur, and it's unique to Australia since most of the population lives in Australia, and only a few are found outside of Australia. So these are koalas. They hang on top of trees, yeah. It's that those were kind of like the animals of Australia, kangaroos and koalas. They're kind of like the famous animals that are native to Australia. But moving on to more of the nature again, is the Great Barrier Reef. And it's the largest coral system in the world. And that is what it looks like. And if we take a look at the map, the Great Barrier Reef is along this line of Australia, maybe in the northeast, right here. And then if you guys actually go into the coral reef, it looks really beautiful like this. These plants are different corals, so they live under the ocean. They're these kind of like plants and flowers underneath the ocean. You guys can think of it that way. And there are a lot of marine animals like sea turtles, fish, and then starfish, and a lot of more organisms that live in this coral reef. It's a very beautiful place. I'll give you guys some time to look at it. And then, yeah, let's move on. Okay, so one final thing that I want to talk to you guys about is Sydney. Sydney, it's not the capital, but it's a very famous city in Australia. It's one of the most well-known cities in Australia. So that is what Sydney looks like in the middle, right there. And another picture of Sydney, the famous bridge and the Opera House. I'll get into that in just a bit. And this is also like the night view of Sydney. Okay, well, the Opera House. It's really iconic, and when people often think about Australia, they would think the Opera House in Sydney. Well, it looks something like this in the middle, and then it's actually a musical theater, and they mainly play operas, but they also do other plays, and there are often orchestras playing in the Opera House, and inside this Opera House, it looks quite interesting. It kind of looks like some sort of wave or like a bird or something else. It's like a cone. But inside, it looks something like this on the left. That is the opera house from the inside. And on the right, there are people performing some sort of play or opera in this opera house. Oh, oh, so just in case, if you're curious, what does opera mean in an opera house? So opera is sort of like a mix of an act and a musical. It's kind of I can show you guys maybe a video of opera. Um, Often people sing in really, really loud voices, and they have this unique own style. And that is what's being performed in this house. So it is a musical theater that often plays operas. And I believe the picture on the right here is an opera. But when it actually comes to the play, people often sing really in loud voices. That's their classical voice of opera. So, and I would like to conclude um, this Australian part with this video. Yeah, I hope you guys liked the video. it basically summarized everything what I've said, talking about like the nature wonders in Australia, since it has really beautiful places that my opinion I really want to visit. And yeah, that was it for the lecture today. And here are the continents that we learned. For Africa, there are we learned Tanzania and Egypt, and we also learned Australia. And remember, Australia is both a continent and a country. So we learned one Australia and then two countries for Africa. And then I didn't have a chance to talk about Ghana because, like I said before, for Ghana, you guys know more than me. So possibly right now, can you guys tell me more about Ghana and um about your home place? So I'm curious to know.
Can you
And
guys talk? Uh-huh. David, do you want them to talk about Ghana or you want them to write about it?
they can just say things about Ghana. They can just tell me right now. Yeah.
All right. So you can say anything you know about Ghana and tell David. The languages, the culture, the dance, the name. You can say something. Yes, anyone. Anyone is something you know already. Yes. So no one can say anything about Ghana. You don't know anything about Ghana.
Yeah, like for example,
All right.
what is the main dish in Ghana and like what is famous in Ghana? I just want to
What
know.
the main dish means? What dish means? What's the main food in Ghana? Is actually
Yes.
no.
You know, in Ghana, we don't have, but we have a
Tribal food, yes.
So you pick one tribe, then you talk about it.
Uh-huh.
Somebody goes to pick another tribe. Somebody pick a location in Ghana, then you talk about it. But just one, if you act out like this, it means like you have just, what is wrong with it? So your own tribe, you can't talk about it. Your clothing, how you dress, the language you speak, talk about this thing, this, that, and you are here.
David.
Just
Yes.
what
So one of you should come forward and talk to me about your tribe, the language you speak, your tribe, and then maybe how you dress. Yes. Anyone, people come and say something. People come and say something. You can't even sit as where you are and talk. Let's have to speak louder. Yes. All right, Jamie. The only language, or some of the languages that we speak here, we have the main language in Ghana here is Twi, which is Akan. Yes, so that's the main language. And then for the food aspect, we don't have a main national food, but we have tribal foods.
Oh, I see.
So for instance, a tribe like Ewe, they eat akpele. Their main food is akpele. And then a tribe like the largest ethnic group or tribe in Ghana here, they go with fufu. Yeah, that is what they eat a lot. For the rice, we also eat rice, but rice is like a general food for all of us. So let me say, we eat rice, mainly during occasions before we usually eat rice.
Oh,
Yes, but with our tribal food, we eat tribal all the time, always. So
oh,
that is how this is. With our dressing, we also have tribal dresses.
mm,
So every tribe has their own dresses, but we dress traditionally. But because we are colonized by the British, we usually dress officially like the British.
oh,
That is when we are going to work or going for any official program or ceremony, we dress like the British.
oh,
Like with our tie, our coat, and that is for official, like for work purposes, and then let's say for church. But for instance, with marriage, we have traditional marriage, which we do that with our own traditional dresses. So before we also have the wedding, which is for marriage. We also dress like the British, how the British do or does their wedding ceremony.
yeah.
So for us here, we do two different marriages, which is traditional marriage and then wedding. Yes. So somebody decide to do only traditional marriage and dress in a traditional way. That is with our kente. So the main clothing here in Ghana here is kente. That is for traditional purposes. That is a local dress. It's called kente. Are you getting me? So that is the main traditional dress in Ghana. It's called kente. Then we also wear beads around our
Yeah.
hands, and then the ladies also wear beads around their waist. Yes. So the ladies in Ghana here, almost all ladies wear beads around their waist before they wear the main dress on top of.
Oh,
Please, are you getting it? Yeah, so even the students here, they have beads, they wear beads around their waist. Before
yeah.
wear the school uniform, the main uniform on top of it. Yeah, so that is briefly about Ghana.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I never knew that fact about Ghana, and yeah, thank you for letting me know. Yeah, it's really interesting, and I believe Ghana has very interesting culture, and I definitely didn't know a lot of things before. But yeah, thank you for telling me about Ghana.
All right, all right.
Do you have any other
You're welcome.
questions? Yeah, for
Any
everyone.
other question? All right.
Please, what is the lifespan of kangaroo?
The lifespan. All right. Ask David. Speak louder.
Please, the lifespan of kangaroo.
David, please, can you hear her?
I can only hear the first part. Like, tell me what again?
Yes, she was asking that what is the lifespan? The lifespan of kangaroo. The lifespan of kangaroo.
Oh, kangaroos. I can actually show you guys here.
Okay. If you want to find out.
So, according to Google, the average lifespan is around 8 years in the wild. But if it's under human care, it can live up to 25 years. So, yeah, the maximum they can live is 25 years. And I guess the minimum is 8 years.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, so as you can see on the screen, see the average lifespan is what? 25 years, from 8 years to 25 years. That is the lifespan. All right. Any other questions? Okay, come and ask me.
Is it only British people who live now?
What question? Speak.
Is it only British people who lived in Australia in the past.
David, please, can you hear him?
Um, did he say were the British people always in Australia?
Is it
Was that your
only British that or who live in Australia in the past, right? So he was saying that is it only the British people who live in Australia in the past?
Well, it was an Australian, I mean, it was a British colony in the past, but people often like moved, that is true. Often people who are British moved to Australia to live, but it's not the land of British anymore. It gained independence. But it was originally the British colony, so British people do live in Australia. Yeah. But it gained independence, so it's their own continent and country.
All right, all right, all right. How the say that the British live there, but there are other territories. But because the British colonized Australia, there are a lot of British people there. You get? All right. All right, any other question? Okay. All right, so I think there is no other question again. Now, yes, so if you have any question for us, fine, but we don't have any question.
No, I don't have much to say, but I guess I hope you guys like the lecture. Is there anything else you want me to change? I can like, is there anything else you want me to focus on specifically? Like, because I mainly talk about the language, the food, and the religion, and different clothings. Are there anything else you want me to talk about? Or
All right, for that one, it depends on the student. He's asking that, is there anything else that you want to learn about these countries, apart from the food, the culture, the dressing that he talked about? Come on, the video is coming. We want more video. We want more video about what? Australia. More video. Their dance.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Their language is English. That's the official language. All right. David.
yeah.
You were saying that they've heard saying the Australians they dance a lot. So they want to see more videos about their dancing. Maybe next time when we meet. They want to see more videos about their dancing. Like the music they play, the dancing, how they dance and all that. And then you were also talking about their games.
Oh,
They
okay.
play, yes, about the Australians. The games that they play a lot, they are dancing in that they are what is it theater or what? Because you made mention that they have a musical theater, so they want to see how they dance over there. They are done and more videos about dancing, and then the games they play. Yeah. All right.
So for next time, I can focus more about what they actually do and possibly the games that they play too. And yeah, I'll definitely include that in the next lecture. And the next lecture
Alright.
is going to be on North and South America. So that will be next week's lecture.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. All right.
Yeah. You guys don't have anything else. Yeah, thank you for listening to my lecture, and I hope to see you guys next week.
All right.
Bye. And I have this video here, which kind of shows people climbing this mountain and trying to get to the top of the tallest mountain in Africa.